My dad taught me how to play chess at the age of 4, but I didn't have that many people to play with. I played with my sister, and my brother was only a year old, so I lost interest after learning chess. So I played baseball more often than anything else. I played from 1984 all the way up till 1995. I started to learn more about strategies in chess when I was in college. And my dad is a good chess player, so he taught me a lot about how to evaluate a position and other things. But today we're going to talk about how to evaluate a position and how to tell who's winning. The first thing you look at is who has better pieces on the board. Right now, white has already captured 3 of my pawns, and I have only captured 1 of his pawns. So white has more material on the board. By the way, I'm the one that's playing the black pieces, and the person playing the white pieces will be remained unknown. He didn't want to be a part. He didn't want me to film his face in the camera, so we're just taking a look at the board. Being down in material, here I'm down by 2 pawns. That is like playing baseball without a center fielder or without a right fielder. In the end of the chess game, whoever has the most pieces is going to have a major advantage, especially in the end. Right now, being down 2 pawns is not that big of a deal, especially because I took out a bishop, a knight, a queen. I actually took out 2 bishops, a knight, and a queen, and I have a pawn in the center. That pawn on the e5 square, that's a very strong pawn. It controls a middle square. It controls d4. And it controls f4 also. And I'm getting out my pieces. What white wants to do, if he's ahead in material, is to try to exchange the pieces down, like the queens. Exchange the queens off. Because your advantage in material is a bigger advantage at the end when it's simple. Right now, since there's a lot of pieces on the board, the queens are tricky, the knights are tricky. At the end, when you just have 3 pawns, and then your opponent just has 1 pawn, because you traded everything down, which means you exchange your bishops, you exchange your knights, and then you're down to just those 3 pawns, and your opponent is down just to 1 pawn, it's a lot easier to win, because there's less complications. This is a complication right here. The king needs to move up to e2, and yeah, he's up by 2 pawns, but he has to deal with my queen in his territory, my bishop in his territory, my pawn in the middle. It's very hard for him to make something out of his material advantage. Now, he put me in check right there. Now he's going to win that rook for an exchange for his knight. So he wins more material here. He gets a rook. I'm going to capture back. And then I only get a knight. So now he's up by 4 points. So we looked at how you evaluate a position. The first thing of most importance is who has more material. What do you think is the next thing? It's who has better pawn structure. Because the pawns are so important in defending and attacking too, but let's talk about defending. The best structure for your pawns are all the pawns where they start, because there's no holes in the position, which means there's no weak squares that the enemy can come into. It's similar to baseball. If your right fielder is playing in center field, you have a big hole in right field. So the person hitting can hit it to right field and hit a home run or a triple very easily. So those are two things that you need to know on evaluating a position. Who has more material and who has better pawn structure. I want you to make a guess. What do you think is another thing that you have to consider when figuring out who has a better position? Make a guess. Did you guess whose pieces can move around the board better? Whose pieces have better mobility? Can your knights move from the right side of the board to the left side of the board quickly? How about your bishops? Are your bishops on their home squares? If you can win a game of chess without having to take out your pieces, you should write a book and entitle it Winning a Fight with Your Hands Tied Behind Your Back. You need piece mobility. You need your pieces to be out, being able to move around and attack. Now there's one last thing you have to consider. That is who has a safer king. You can't have your king out there in the middle because it will become easy for your opponent to see a combination. Whenever you're in check, you have to move out of check so your opponent can come up with combinations where he attacks your king and another free piece at the same time. So you're going to have to move out of check when you're in check, and then he captures the other free piece and your position's just going to crumble. So let's do an update on this position. He started off with better material, and he still has better material. Now I'm trying to open up the position by getting that pawn out of the way, exchange these off, and make a threat against his queen. That's another thing you have to consider in evaluating position, by the way. It's who has threats, basically. Who is threatening a queen? Who is threatening to win a rook? Who's threatening the king? So those are enemy threats. What is being attacked? Who can win more material? So here I'm threatening a very strong checkmate combination, actually. I'm threatening to put my queen on f2. Let's see what he does to block it. Let's see if he sees the whole combination. See? There's a check. And now my king's in a nice safe place. I got lucky, by the way. The computer analyzed this position and it's winning for white. Queen to c3 is not a good move. That does not defend the checkmate combination. Here goes the checkmate combination. Queen to f2. And he's going to have to go to d1. That's the only square he can go to. He cannot take my queen because it's protected by the bishop. The king will go to d1, and then I will follow up with queen to e1. And the king cannot escape to c2 because the bishop on e4 is protecting that square. So remember, gain material, keep your pawn structure safe, keep your king safe, make sure your pieces can move around the board, and threaten stuff. I hope you had fun watching.